And of course, activism and equality comes in like different levels. You can't get everything overnight, but at the same time, we have to keep our goals in mind. Like, what is the ultimate goal and how do we get there?
Hi guys. This Tell Me Everything video is a little bit different from ones that we've done in the past. In this video, we are having our guests and you guys, our readers, our watchers, and our listeners take the stage. We have 3 incredible Black Lives Matter activists that came together in a round table to answer questions that you guys sent in via Instagram. And they're gonna talk all about anti-racism, what that means in practice, what it actually looks like to be an activist on the ground and to organize other people, and what demands are going to take us into a better future, what's next. So without further ado, I'm gonna let your questions and these incredible guests take it away.
Okay, so hi everybody, my name is Genesis Whitlock, you can call me Jen. I just turned 17 2 weeks ago. I am from Montclair, New Jersey, sort of around the New Jersey, New York City area.
So hi, my name is Lily Thomason. I am 23 years old. I am from Chicago, and I'm actually moving to Nashville like this week. So we're in like a transition with that.
Hi guys, my name's Tiana. I'm also 17 years old. I live in San Ramon, California, right in the Bay Area, probably about 45 minutes from San Francisco. And unlike you guys, I haven't been involved in activism for too long. It's probably been about a month.
My experience with the BLM movement so far is that I am one of the main youth organizers in my town. Recently, I've organized a unity walk or a march against institutional racism within the education system, where over 6,000 people attended, and it's an ongoing battle where we want to see anti-racist policies implemented in our school system.
What do we want it? Now! If we don't get it, shut it down! If we don't get it, shut it down! If we don't get it, shut it down!
The first protest I did was in my city in San Ramon, and it was about 3,000 to 4,000 people. It's pretty cool. My first protest ever, like I said, was never really someone who got into politics or like any type of activism. So seeing so many people getting involved in my community, I was like, I'm like one of the only Black kids. Like I should keep it going. I should see what else I can do. The next day I went to the Pleasanton protest, which is a city over from me. And I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw an ad for the Golden Gate Bridge protest. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be huge. Like San Francisco, that's like where everyone goes. It's a huge tourist spot. And I was scrolling through the comments and someone was like, I need a leader for this protest. Like I'm literally going to cancel it. She's 19 years old, her name's Mimi Zoila, but she's a white ally, so she couldn't lead the protest herself. So she was like, I need someone from the Black community. And I was like, I'll do it. Like, and she's like, you know, it's like literally tomorrow, right? We're literally like the protest is in 18 hours. I was like, yeah, it's okay. Like, we'll figure it out. And we ended up having an attendance of over 50,000 people who walked the bridge with us. And we literally got it together in 18 hours. So yeah, my life has been turned all the way around ever since that started.
We know what is happening in society today is wrong. We know the justice system is flawed. We know that racism still exists today after 400 years of oppression. And we know this is the generation that will fix this.
I am actually going to graduate school for poetry. So I use writing and poetry to really talk about social justice and incarceration and everything that goes along with that. So my abolition is really based in poetry. My mother is 22, hair rolled perfectly up towards God, her lips red and cinched back, a face like blinds being pulled upwards, laughing with my eyes, the mirror of our bodies, ripe hip, plum-like and glittery, holding friction in all the same places, stomach covered carefully by the buckle on her belt, and I wish so badly to stop here.
For me, I think like fears going into it was like I mean, as a teenager, you're worried about who's judging you and what your friends think. And for me, especially, I've been someone who, like I said, have had identity crisis my whole life. So I was just doing anything I could to fit in. I went to school with a bunch of girls who were blonde hair, blue-eyed, and I just wanted to be like them. I would straighten my hair and stay out of the sun. And it's a lot of things that a lot of Black kids do in order to try to fit in. And at the end of it, I was like, who cares what people think of me at this point?
I think my biggest fear going into this movement was knowing how much is going to come out of it. When I made the infographics, I didn't realize how big they were going to get. And so while I'm so excited that happened, it has been really nerve-wracking knowing that I am going to a grad school soon. That's in Nashville, somewhere where I'm not necessarily used to being in like a Southern environment. And it was hard to not think that I was putting a target on myself. But I think that speaking out is more important than that. And I've devoted my life to this work. So I still feel really confident about my choice to do that. But that was a thought in the back of my mind for sure.
So I moved to this country when I was 13 from Antigua in the Caribbean, a place where I never had to think about my identity. I never had to think about being a Black person, a Black woman. So I moved to this town just being very conscious of not coming from America, and my voice was still there. Like, I was still very adamant about speaking up for my community. But you have so many people looking at you, you almost want to take a step back and try to be more palatable for other people. It was since like 1968 or something, like that was, there hadn't been any talk of Black empowerment explicitly in our town. There hadn't been a protest in our town in a very long time. Young people hadn't spoken out in my town for like a really long time. So just feeling like the first and feeling like the only one, and having all that pressure to try and be perfect and be that, you know, token person that lays the foundation for other people, that was a little jarring. But I did sort of feel like I had to fit into a certain type of box and make it palatable to everybody to make sure that my message was impactful.
This society wasn't built for Black America. And I think that's the message that I'm trying to get across, is like, if you open your eyes and you don't try to suppress everything, because if there's a problem, I try to suppress it. Like immediately, I just don't like dealing with conflict. But I think I'm realizing it's like, you need to address the conflict, because if you're uncomfortable, you don't feel good, you don't feel right, like who's going to change it? No one's going to change it unless you go out there and change it. Like there's so many of my friends who are white allies who are like taking education in their own hands, you know, watching documentaries, and there's so many resources that we have today that people can use to realize how society has just always been trying to tear down Black communities.
I think that the biggest message that I want to be amplified for this movement to continue is that we have conversations where individual experiences are amplified, but then simultaneously people are consistently questioning, why are these deaths able to happen? Why does this one Black person feel this way? Why does this other Black person feel this way? And continue to question the system that we've all been raised to normalize, because that's the reason everything that we're seeing, from coronavirus to the police brutality, like they're not individual. And I notice now that people are making those parallels and those connections, and I just want to see that happening a lot more.
I was watching this interview with an educator, and she said, honestly, I really feel like we could eradicate racism if we just taught about it, like if we just talked about it in schools, because like our school system is really based on like sheltering the white experience and white privilege and normalizing that whole experience. So often we don't hear about all the injustices that happen to Black people, or we hear that oh, you know, like slave masters loved their slaves, like it was all just a happy like thing that was going on. Like you don't hear about all the injustices, or like they try to kind of sneak it in and say, oh, but it wasn't that bad, like I don't know what you're overreacting about, or oh, that was my ancestor, but it wasn't me, so I have nothing to do with it. Like, all that stuff is kind of ingrained in you, especially if you go to a school system like we've been to, like a suburb kind of thing like that. So I really think that the most important thing that people should take away from this movement is that our identities really inform every single part of our lives. Whether that be like with systemic racism, it's everything. It's where you can get a job. It's if you can get a job. It's if you can move out of the specific place that you're in, if you can get loans, if you can get into a college that you want. It's everything. And the Black experience is so built up on that we're trying to dismantle all of that oppression, which is a hard job, but it needs to be done. It needs to be talked about. And police brutality is just one aspect of that. I think that people are so angry because it's not only police brutality, it's everything. And everything in America is really built up on slave labor and the labor of Black people who have been suffering this whole time that we've been here.
With that education, using it to empower ourselves to establish change from the top down, because we have policies like the 13th Amendment where it's slavery is legal unless you're convicted of a crime. And then like a couple months later, suddenly everybody who's convicted of a crime is Black. And then you have mass incarceration and all these different ways where Black people are still able to be oppressed because that's the way that the system can be designed to. So it starts from top down, where we educate ourselves amongst our communities. And then with community empowerment, we take all of our demands to the top and ask for this system to be completely reshifted, because the system isn't broken. It's doing exactly what its intended purpose was, which was to continue to exploit Black people in any way that's necessary, in any way that's profitable and that benefits like non-Black people.
We all have grown up in the suburbs, but I don't want that. Like, people often would probably, I don't know if you guys are the same, but people often say, like, you grew up in the suburbs, like, you don't know anything about the struggle, you're light skinned, like, you don't know anything. And I keep continuing to say that it's so important that we are giving the mic to the most vulnerable person. Like, yes, I'm going to take all these opportunities to speak out and use my voice, but I also we want to amplify other Black voices who are also vulnerable and have stories as well, because all of us have a story, and my story may not be my story is not the same as anyone's. And, you know, the person who is the most vulnerable will always be like the Black trans woman at the end of the day, because she is under all these umbrellas. She's fighting for Black rights, women's rights, LGBTQ, trans lives. Like, that is the most vulnerable person in the room, and we need to be able to give the mic at the end of the day, like, share the attention that we get as like activists to those type of people, because they can advocate for everyone.
I think, like I said, discussion to me is really important, because I wrote those demands at like 5 a.m. in like a fit of rage, just really wanting to see something done. But I was not able to get those demands together had I not engaged with other people in my community who are Black, who felt as though their needs weren't being met. So for me, it was really great to have those demands, because it consistently reminded people why they were there. So I confronted my Board of Ed, and they said that the demands that we asked for are going to be the framework of what our entire district is going to look like for the next 5 years. And that's a really big win for us, because this means that it really wasn't a moment, and that we're going to continue to amplify the voices of Black people in my town to ensure that the needs are met. But for anybody else who wants to do something like that in their community, I would say engage in discussion with Black people in your town, and just people in your town. Learn to read policy and learn the basics of organizing, so that you have the power, and it's not just like older people patting you on the head, thanking you for coming to their meeting. Like, it's not an accident, it's not a fluke that you chose to show up one day. Like, make it a consistent, like, and continue to empower yourself with the education that you have access to. And then follow through, continue to empower other people, and be very consistent in what you've asked for. And for right now, that's pretty much working for me, and that's the advice that I would give to other people who want to see a similar amount of change.
For me, I started writing poetry because my dad actually writes poetry, and he's been incarcerated for about 15 years. With activism, you need to get in where you fit in. So for sure, it's always thinking about what you can do specifically and what's in your wheelhouse and in your power to do. And that can be art making. No matter what talents they have, it can always be applied to the movement.
I say if you're a Black person, start one. If you're an ally, start organizing and find a Black leader. Like, if you want to get involved, reach out to people and just reach out on Instagram or Twitter. Like, don't be afraid to talk to different people. Like, people are not judgmental in this. Like, you will, ultimately build a friendship.
When I'm making my social media posts or when I'm making anything like that, I do notice myself watering myself down, not wanting to be misconstrued or not wanting people to take immediate offense to what I'm saying, so then they're not even going to listen to what I have to say. But I've realized in doing that it doesn't matter what I say. Someone out there is always going to have an issue with it. Someone is always going to comment, all lives matter. Someone is always going to say, well, your opinion isn't correct or whatever. So I've really taken it upon myself to really think about why I want to water myself down, what that is, and how it can stop doing that. Because I think that Black voices are so important right now. And the biggest disservice that we can do to ourselves and to the movement is to make ourselves more palatable for capitalism, for corporations, for that kind of thing. I think especially when we started talking about abolishing the police, everyone was like, oh my God, like, what does that mean? Like, that's crazy. Like, why would you say that? Like, there was immediate feedback like that. So then it makes you want to say like, oh, well, no, I mean, just like defund them a little. Like, I don't mean abolish. Like, it makes you like take a step back. When in reality, it's like, yeah, I meant abolish the police. Like, let's talk about it. Like, I think that that's a really important part of this. And of course, activism and equality comes in like different levels. You can't get everything overnight, but at the same time, we have to keep our goals in mind. Like, what is the ultimate goal and how do we get there? I think I found a lot of joy in having the conversations that I've been having. My family, I'm also mixed, and my family is predominantly white. And I've had these really beautiful and wonderful and generative conversations with my grandma and my mom and these people who maybe they weren't thinking about this kind of thing before, but when I've explained it to them, they're like, wow, yeah, like I really agree. And I understand where you're coming from. And I think those little spots of just illumination, of just knowing that you're helping someone or that you're helping them see a different side of things has just been really fantastic as well.
At the end of the day, just like looking back at everything and being like, but look at how much amazing things that I'm doing. Look how many people support. I think that speaks for itself. Like, that's where I'm finding the joy, is seeing how many people want to support and who want to be allies and want to get involved and doing their research. Like, that is what makes me happy at the end of the day.
What I'm conscious of is that me taking a step back and, at least for right now, trying to find happiness in very dark times is revolutionary. So that brings me joy from time to time.
That's awesome, guys. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I really can't tell you guys how thankful I am to have, met and talked with each of you guys over Instagram, and now to sit here and talk as a group. It's just been awesome. So I'm really glad that we were able to make it happen.
It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and to Tilt. And I feel like I was just so excited to be able to contribute to this great conversation. So yeah, thank you again.
I definitely feel like my voice and my views were amplified today. So thanks a lot, Jessie.
Awesome. Oh, you're so welcome, you guys.
Thanks, guys. We'll catch up with you later.
Okay,
yes,
sounds
definitely.
good. Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and of course, thank you so much for sending in such incredible and thoughtful questions. And huge thank you to Tiana and Jen and Lily for joining us for this discussion. We hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think. Let us know if you want to see more roundtables, if you want to hear more from activists, and we'll get after that for you guys. See y'all later.